So far in this series, we've talked about what the next Zelda game needs to improve upon from Breath of the Wild, but we haven't yet talked about what the next game needs to keep from Breath of the Wild.
And to talk with us about what should be brought back from Breath of the Wild to future Zelda games, we have none other than Missclick Gaming.
Thanks so much for having me, Commonwealth Realm. Any chance I get to talk about Zelda is a chance I'm going to take. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. When we sat down to talk about what needs to be kept for the next Zelda game, the first thing that came to mind was climbing. Seeing Link climb in the first gameplay trailer was nothing short of mind-blowing. Sure, he was able to climb in other previous games, but this time he could climb on just about any surface in the open world. That is, until his stamina meter ran out. Which is all the more reason to keep upgrading the green meter. Climbing wasn't just a literal game changer for Zelda, but for open world gaming as a whole. It made Hyrule feel that much more explorable and limitless. If you were trying to get to the top of a mountain, you would just have to climb it. No need to walk around for a path towards the top, or, God forbid, spam the jump button to try and get up. Skyrim players, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And in addition to the climbing, bring back the paraglider. Climbing helped free the boundaries of the game, and the gliding helped free them even more. The worries of taking fall damage were reduced thanks to this handy device, and it made the Sheikah Towers even more handy. If you saw a spot you wanted to go to from the top of these massive structures, you could begin your expedition immediately just by jumping off and gliding towards it. It just works.
But what happens when you finally hit the ground and aren't there yet? Well, that's where your horse comes in, and it would be a no-brainer to bring these beautiful animals back in the next game, assuming it takes place on land, of course. While Epona will always be loved, being able to collect your own batch of horses by sneaking up on them and taming them was a nice addition to Breath of the Wild's many activities. Some of us, like me, usually settled with one horse, but others wanted many different steeds and mares for every occasion. All we ask for the next game is to include more sophisticated horse mechanics, like building a greater bond that doesn't just result in a 100% heart meter. Obviously, you would have to store these horses in stables, which should definitely make a return, but maybe make them a part of something bigger. What do we mean by that? Well, if you're going to have a stable, why not have them inside a greater marketplace similar to the one in Skyward Sword? In Breath of the Wild, stables already tripled as a place to store your horses, an inn to catch up on sleep, and a trading post thanks to Beetle's little shop. But what if in the next game, stables had all that and a blacksmith, whom you could buy weapons from, and yes, even repair your current weapons? We know that weapon durability in Breath of the Wild was a nuisance for some players, but we thought it was a great idea that could have been executed better. Let's face it, if weapons didn't break, we would be using the same one for the rest of the game. That's not fun, is it? That said, the next game could provide a better balance by allowing players to repair any damaged weapons. Also, maybe increase the durability of the weapons by, say, 50%? We will agree that most of the weapons broke way too quickly, and we would love it if they were just a bit more durable in the next game.
If blacksmiths were to be introduced, they wouldn't be limited to just stables. They would have a fitting place in towns and settlements, and these thriving areas should also return, but in greater numbers and with bigger populations. Given the story in Breath of the Wild, it was understandable why we didn't see that many bustling towns and settlements. Even most of the ones that were there weren't on the scale of Hyrule Castletown from Twilight Princess. No doubt, we would love to see Castletown make a return, but if the next game isn't set in Hyrule, then something of a similar scale will be more than satisfactory. And since we are on the topic of towns and settlements, this could be a key factor of the post-game in the next title. In Hatena Village we were able to buy a house, but we weren't able to do much in it aside from displaying a few weapons and a very nice picture. Maybe to increase replay value once the story is completed, we could add more activities and side quests that involve our house, or even something similar to the Tarry Town quest. Basically, The Legend of Zelda Animal Crossing, essentially giving Link a life inside the land of Hyrule when every other quest has been completed. One of the side quest mechanics we would also love to return is the multi-layer nature of the side quest, or more specifically the quest lines leading up to a big reward at the end. Brilliant examples here are the questline in Kakariko that eventually led to an emotional confrontation and a shrine reward, and the previously mentioned From Rags to Riches questline where you first embark on buying back what is likely the home of Link's childhood, then are handed two options: continue furnishing your home or begin with the construction of Tarry Town, where a full new settlement and a wedding is waiting for you as a reward for completion. And while we're on the topic of Link, Breath of the Wild gave us more options to customize him than ever before. Why not add to this by letting us customize his hair, his earrings, or even more unlikely combos, since we will likely not be visiting Hyrule in the next game.
Speaking of the land of Hyrule, obviously they need to keep the open air setting of Breath of the Wild in the next game, but there were a lot of other cool features of the world itself that need to be kept as well. For instance, the organic wildlife. The game has some of the most impressively programmed flora and fauna in video game history, behaving naturally thanks to the physics and chemistry engine. If we had the same exact species in Breath of the Wild in the next Zelda game, we wouldn't complain. All we ask for is that you let us pet the dogs. Look at that good boy, how can we not pet him? And we are a fan of the cats from Twilight Princess, so we wouldn't say no to them being included in the next Zelda as well. Perhaps even on a farm or a ranch. Preferably one that hasn't been destroyed. As tragic as it was looking at destroyed Lon Lon Ranch in post-apocalyptic Hyrule, it was also a testament to how effective a world's lore can be when it's shown and not told. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and even the smallest ruins or rubble tell the deepest of stories without uttering a single word. Lore of this caliber is a must in the next game. But if you absolutely need to tell a story, then we would not mind the return of voice acting. Even though to some, the voice acting could have been better in Breath of the Wild, we are certain that the franchise must continue including voice actors. Though they should give us the language select option at launch in case we prefer the Japanese or any other dub from the start. But back to the open air aspect, because there are a great number of features that should be carried over, such as hunting and cooking. They are a great way to learn management of inventory, as well as health and stamina, which should also make a comeback. However, we would appreciate a more sophisticated way to upgrade both, rather than having to trade in 4 spirit orbs to increase either one or the other. Maybe even include stamina and heart pieces as collectibles throughout the game's world. I don't know, it's just an idea.
Another idea is to bring back the shrines and shrine quests. We would love more creative shrine quests like the one on Eventide Island, as well as more challenging ones like in the Champion's Ballad. They may not be called shrines or shrine quests, but they would be very similar. All we ask for is less of these shrine-like temples and for them to look different depending on the province you're in. With that being told, we still want the multi-solution and physics-based design from Breath of the Wild to return, where you could break the shrine by abusing the physics engine, and in combination with the paraglider, objects found in the shrines, and most importantly the Sheikah runes, find a more efficient way to the Sheikah monk and the spirit orb or additional treasure. And wherever the next Zelda game takes place, we hope that it will be as diverse as Hyrule was in Breath of the Wild, with snowy mountains, scorching deserts, grassy fields, and way more. We also hope that getting around this land will be just as fun with shield surfing, horseback riding, sailing, along with a few more new options. Perhaps a Loftwing. And we don't know about the Master Cycle 0, but if something like it does show up, it better not be after completing all the main quests. After all, what's the point of having it? Perhaps a better option would be to offer a cycle or motor-based vehicle after uncovering the full map. It would be a very nice reward. Anyway, the world in the next Zelda game should be filled with enemies at all times, which is why we need a Blood Moon equivalent to keep the foes coming back. Mini-bosses should also be present in the world, even in dungeons and shrine-like mini-dungeons. Regardless of how big or small the enemies are, they should have the same sophisticated AI as they did in Breath of the Wild. On top of that, it would be positive to have a few more enemies with the same quality of enemy AI, but of course not exaggerate because there's a whole lot of work involved with bringing these enemies truly to life. If players want even more of a challenge, then Master Mode should be brought back, although not as paid DLC. You should at least have to beat the main story before unlocking the challenging mode. Another aspect that should return is player freedom, allowing you to complete the game in any way you see fit, whether that be through means of stealth, head-to-head combat, or a combination of the two. You can get extra creative and use the weather to your advantage, like throwing metal objects during a thunderstorm to strike down opponents with lightning. This definitely needs to return in the next Zelda, even if it does make the climbing harder. Just please don't make it rain as often, okay?
The gift of choice also means letting players interact with the world in any way they see fit, letting them do anything they want with their surroundings for any reason. Chopping down trees and lighting things on fire is just one of the thousands of activities you can do. They would be crazy not to incorporate this in the next game, and even though we doubt it's coming back, we hope they find a way to give us an item as good as the Sheikah Slate and even Sheikah technology itself. This opened the door to many combat and puzzle options that we didn't think were possible in the Zelda series. Including powers like the Sheikah runes at the very start would continue to bring over groundbreaking and even game-breaking rules. Luckily, the champion abilities you acquire later on in Breath of the Wild were one of the reasons to keep playing. They offered special powers that helped with traversal, combat, health, and defense. Powers similar to these ones would be much appreciated and offer incentive to keep playing. Although, it being a new open-air Zelda game would be enough incentive as it is. However, the last feature on the agenda is the most important one, and that is the ability to have a Pro HUD mode. Yeah, we don't want all these emblems clogging up our screen if we don't need them. Pro HUD mode was a godsend in this regard. Next time, however, maybe we can have a more customizable HUD. Perhaps we don't want the champion abilities displayed, but we do want the compass. A customizable HUD would be a handy tool. And those are the features from Breath of the Wild that we want the next Zelda game to keep and improve upon. And we would love to thank Missclick for joining us on this episode. So buddy, let us know where we can find you.
Oh, well the pleasure is all mine. You guys can find me here on YouTube as Missclick Gaming, or you can find my Twitch, Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, all listed on my website at www.missclickgaming.com. Thank you so much for having me. Stay awesome, stay beautiful, and stay savage.
Now then, were there any features that you had in Breath of the Wild that you would love to see back but we didn't include in this video? Then make sure to leave them in the comment section down below. And as always, be sure to click that thumbs up button if you like this video, and if you're new, subscribe and hit that notification bell to know when we upload another Zelda video.
We would also like to thank our glorious patrons over at patreon.com/commonrealm, and in particular, royal producers Kenyatta Ali and Bradley Carriage. Be sure to visit our Patreon page to know how you can join the ranks in exchange for some awesome perks. That's all for now, girls and guys, so we will see you next time on the Commonwealth Realm.